Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Shamsaradava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Gita Manasura Sena Romancha Kampasru Taranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Romancha Kampasru Shri Vigrara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Niramarjanado Shri Vigrara Nana Shringara Tanma Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyonjatopi Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Kritva Trupte Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bhajato Shadeva Shiradikama Dabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Danalalupasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Ne Kunja Yuno Rati Keri Siddhai Jajali Vir Juktir Apekshaneya Nikunja Yuno Jajali Vir Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Sakchadharidena Shamasta Shashre Ruktastatthava Vyataiva Sadhavi. Kintu pravarja priya eva tasya vande gurashi charanara vrindam. Priya eva tasya tasya prasada bhagavat prasadam yasha prasadam nagati kutapi yasya prasada yasya prasada nagati kutapi Dhyayam stuvam tasya yasatrin sandhyam vande gurashi charanara vrindam. Vande gurashi charanara. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shonavadi Pachatya Deshata Dine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shonavadi Pachatya Deshata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Nama, Krishna Jadavaye Nama, Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Nama, Gopal Govindaram Shrimadhusudam, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattar Guna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Radha, Nila Madhav Radha, Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama. Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Sitaram, Jayo Lakshman. Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha. Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Prahlad Maru. Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha. Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo. Nitai Gaura Haribo. Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur Pramana. Jai Vishupar Paramahansa Prabhu Jakacharya Suttara Sarasi Shamad Irvan Gui Savachana Vina Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Vividi Samstapakachara Vaishnava Ceremony Padit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patitu Dhara ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhattadasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji ki jai. Ananta Kuri Vaishnavindi ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Prema Nama Sankirtane ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavranaya Avatar ki jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankitan Jaga ki jai. Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shishya Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Gopodhan ki jai. Shri Brajabim Vrindavan Mathura ki jai. The Lordship Shishya Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Navadip Eka Chakradam ki jai. Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Dev Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan ki jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulas Maharani Brinde Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Mathura Dharani ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the Assembly devotees. All glories to the Assembly devotees. All glories to the Assembly devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jai Namo. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadayine. Hiranyakasipo Bhaksha. Silatanka nakalaye. Ito nisinga parato nisinga. Jato jato jame tato nisinga. Bahir nisinga, hrudaye nisinga. Narasimha madim sharanam prapade. Tabakara kamalabare nakao adabhuta singha. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tano Bringa Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Tabakara kamalavare naka adabhuta singha. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tano Bringa Kesavadruta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare Jai Jagadishare. Jaya Nisingare, Jaya Nisingare, Nisingare, Jaya Nisingare. Jaya Narahari, Jaya Narahari, Jaya Narahari, Jaya Narahari. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Prahlad Mara, Bhakta Prahlad, Sila Prahlad Mara. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pata Sarvigna Shakani Singare Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Jai Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Priyasi. Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Bhilasi. Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eyo Bilasi Seva Pava Jeto Mara Sharanala Tara Vancha Puna Jeto Mara Sharanala Tarava Kripa Kari Karatare Vrindavana Vasi. Tumi Kripa Kari Karatare Vrindavana Vasi. Morai Ya Vela Velas Kunja Deyava Moraye Jave Velas Kunja Deyava Nayaneri Bosada Jogala Ruparasi Aminayane Ribosada Yogala Rupara Eni Vedana Dara Sakira Nogata Koro Sevayade Koro Diye Koro Nijadasi. Dina Krishna Das ke enamoro. Dina Krishna Das ko Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sataye Navasi. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaya Navasi. Tulasi Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo. Janikani Sapapani Brahmatarikani Sa Tanitani Pranasanti Pradakshina Paripari. Yanikani Sapapani Brahmatarikani Sa Tanitani Pranasanti Pradakshina Paripari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Devi. Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda. Taigora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Sattvatai Namo Namo. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Sattvatai Namo Namo. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prari Devi Sattvatai Namo Namo. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha Krishna. Prophetic shout of his wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him and make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower coward damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. It's very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna, please. May I always dream love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Yavadu Jivana Ananda Mudivadhanam Pradipadam Punam Dashadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paravijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitanyamita Shmarane Nakala Itadrishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Vajagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rahitu Kitwai Oinam Datanuja Kinkaram Paditamam Vishame Babambudo Kripaya Tapapada Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vishintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Purakarinchitam Vapukada Tavanam Grane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakrusha Pravusaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Aslishava Padaratam Pinastumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatatatava Vidadatu Lampato Matprana Tastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namini Guru Tvishe Namaha Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays in the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested your transcendental energies. There is no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord on strong street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or rather, I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me with some of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? When will the hairs of my body stand on end with the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kirastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating of the name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of the demigods of the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders to speak to the Master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruit of activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhischa, kripa sindhu bhyevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo, namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jitaha Rajalam Shri Rupam Sagrajara Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Tinamini Shri Varsavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujma Panukat Bhaktita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apisadanta Dvantaharine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Vir Bhavanestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Jayatam Surator Pangur Mama Manda Matir Gati Matsarvaswa Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpratumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastita Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestadi Bihi Sevyamanos Marami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Golpir Gopinatak Striyesturna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Buddhi Smriti Bhakti Naswata Namaste Saraswati Devi Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakada Satma Sukalpa Riksha Laksha Vrite Susurabhira Vipaliantam Lakshmi Sastra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvananta Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Bhuta Sundarangam Kandar Prakoti Kamaniya Visesa Sobham Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Rittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiranjaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujwala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastukoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yad Prapadasimya Vichintitatpe Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagaranda Kotim Yaschakti Rasti Jagaranda Chayaya Danta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Sukta Yameva Nigama Pratitaistavanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Vis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidayesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagaranda Koti Koti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagaranda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Vishaya Veda Vitaya Manam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifulam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sutesu Tesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shististati Pralaya Sada Vasaktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Apiyasya Chachestate Sa Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitikar Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Deeparchareva Hita Santaram Abhya Pretya Deepayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakar Nanarna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagaranda Saruma Kopa Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagaranda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kala Viseso Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Vasvanya Tasma Sakalesana Jesa Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvadatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugambini Daya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jakatrayasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha Galastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksuresa Savitasa Galagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayasta Pamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Tayasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhanu Rupa Palabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdati Kintu Chabhakti Paja Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govinda Madipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriyakanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Juma Bhumis Chintamani Ganamai Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chidanandam Jati Param Apitad Aswatyam Apicha Sayatra Kishrabi Vaishravati Shrabi Vyashchumusuva May Sardakya Vavrajati Nahiyatra Visamaya Bajay Svitat Vikram Tamaham Iha Golakamitiam Vidantaste Santakshiti Viracharakati Paye Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srimad-Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 9 Verse number 36 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Etavad eva jijnasyam tatra jijnasunatmana anvaya vyatire kabhyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. Etavat, up to this, eva, certainly, jijnasyam is to be inquired, tattva, the absolute truth, jijnasuna, by the student, atmana, of the self, anvaya, directly, vyatire kabhyam, indirectly, yat, whatever, syat, it may be, sarvatra, in all space and time, sarvada, in all circumstances. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, most certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are near the end, the last 2.5 pages. We'll start all over from Even during the annihilation of the material world, the process of bhakti yoga can be applied. Kalena, nasta pralaye vaninam. The Lord is worshipped in devastation because He protects the Vedas from being annihilated. He is worshipped in every millennium or yuga, and it is said in Srimad-Bhagavatam 12:352, Kriteya yayato Vishnum Tritayam yajato Makai Dvapare Paricharyayam Kalu Tad Dari Kirtanat. In the Vishnu Purana it is written, Sahanistan Mahach Chitram Sa Moha Cha Vibrama Yan Muhurtam Shanam Vapi Vasudevam Nachintayet. If even for a moment remembrance of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is missed, that is the greatest loss. That is the greatest illusion, and that is the greatest anomaly. The Lord can be worshipped in all stages of life. For instance, even in the wombs of their mothers, Maharaj Prahlada, Maharaja Pariksha worshipped the Lord. even in his very childhood, at the age of only 5 years old, or 5 years, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the Lord. Even in full youth, Maharaj Ambarisha worshipped the Lord. And even at the last stage of his frustration in old age, Maharaj Dhritarashtra worshipped the Lord. Ajamila worshipped the Lord even at the point of death. And Chitraleku worshipped the Lord even in heaven and in hell. In the Narasingha Purana, it is said that as the hellish inhabitants began to chant the holy name of the Lord, they began to be elevated from hell towards heaven. Durvasa Muni has also supported this view. Much yetad yan namni udite narakopi. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the inhabitants of hell became released from their hellish persecution. So the conclusion of Srimad-Bhagavatam as given by Sukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit is Etan Nividyamananam akato ichitam akato bayam Harir yoginam nripanirnatam Harir namana kirtanam. O King, it is finally decided that everyone, namely those in the renounced order of life, the mystics, and the enjoyers of fruit of work, should chant the holy name of the Lord fearlessly to achieve the desired success in their pursuits. Srimad-Bhagavatam 2.1.11. Similarly, as indicated indirectly in various places in revealed scriptures, 1. Even though one is well versed in all the Vedas and scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, he is considered to be the lowest of mankind. 2. In the Garuda Purana, Brihan Naradiya Purana, and Padma Purana, the same is repeated. What is the use of Vedic knowledge and penances for one who is devoid of devotional service to the Lord? Number 3. What is the comparison of thousands of Prajapatis to one devotee of the Lord? Number 4. Sukadeva Goswami said, Srimad-Bhagavatam 2.4.17, that neither the ascetic nor one who is greatly munificent or one who is famous, nor the great philosopher, nor the great occultist, nor anyone else can achieve the desired result without being engaged in the service of the Lord. Even if, number 5, even if a place is more glorious than heaven, if there is no glorification of the Lord of Vaikuntha or his pure devotee, it should at once be quitted. Number 6, the pure devotee refuses to accept all the 5 different types of liberation in order to be engaged in the service of the Lord. The final conclusion, therefore, is that the glories of the Lord must be always and everywhere proclaimed. One should hear about his glories, one should chant about his glories, and one should always remember his glories, because that is the highest perfectional stage of life. As far as fruit of work is concerned, it is limited to an enjoyable body. As far as yoga is concerned, it is limited to the acquirement of mystic power. As far as empiric philosophy is concerned, it is limited to the attainment of transcendental knowledge. And as far as transcendental knowledge is concerned, it is limited to attainment of salvation. Even if they are adapted, there is every chance of discrepancies in discharging the particular type of functions. But adoption of the transcendental devotional service of the Lord has no limit, nor is there fear of falling down. The process automatically reaches the final stage by the grace of the Lord. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, there is an apparent requisite for knowledge. But in the higher stage, there is no necessity of such knowledge. The best and guaranteed path of progress is therefore engagement in Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service. The cream of Srimad-Bhagavatam in the foregoing 4 slokas is sometimes squeezed out by the impersonalists for different interpretations in their favor. But it should be carefully noted that the 4 slokas were first described by the personality of Godhead himself, and thus the impersonalist has no scope to enter into them because he has no conception of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, the impersonalists may squeeze out any interpretations from them, but such interpretations will never be accepted by those who are taught in the disciplic succession from Brahma, as will be cleared up in the following verses. Besides that, the Shruti confirms that the Supreme Truth, Absolute Personality of Godhead, never reveals himself to anyone who is falsely proud of his academic knowledge. The Shruti mantra clearly says, Kata Upanishad 1.2.23, Nayamatma pravarchanena labhyo na medaya na bahuda shrutena yam evaisya rinate tenas labhyas tasyaisya atma virinate tanam swam. The whole matter is explained by the Lord himself, and one who has no approach to the Lord in his personal feature can rarely understand the purport of Srimad-Bhagavatam without being taught by the Bhagavatas in the disciplic succession. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Premanande Haribo. So, this last verse, Nayamatma Pravarchanena, is very often quoted by Prabhupada, because basically it's saying that one has to be chosen by Krishna. Let me see where that verse is. Anyway, it's not in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not quoted in the Bhagavad Gita, but that is the meaning of it. That one must be chosen by the Lord. That is, it's not based on academic achievement. It's not based on mystic powers. It's not based on elevation to heavenly planets. It's based on love and devotion for the Lord. And that is the ultimate criterion for being chosen by the Lord. And it makes sense. Why would the Lord choose someone who's inimical to him or who wants to emulate him, but one who wants to serve him sincerely without any ownership or proprietorship concept in their mind? They would be the one that the Lord is very attracted to because of the purity of their desire. So there's a very interesting verse in the Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, 12th verse, which says, Yukta karma phalam tyakva santim apnoti naistikim ayukta kama karena phalisato nibadyate. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness is that the former, meaning the Krishna conscious person, is attached to Krishna, whereas the latter is attached to the results of his activities. The person who is attached to Krishna and works for him only is certainly a liberated person, and he has no anxiety over the results of his work. In the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality. That is, without knowledge of the absolute truth. So, in order to be engaged always in the service of Krishna, one has to have a one-track mind. That one-track mind is everything for Krishna, nothing for me. Everything for Krishna, nothing for me. That means that all his desires, all his thoughts are for serving the Lord under the instructions of bona fide Siksha and Diksha Gurus. Doesn't have any other desires. Now, that of course is a rare soul. But that's what Krishna and Lord Chaitanya are directing people toward, that pure devotional service in which there's no personal motive other than to please the Lord. So, therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute plane. They are transcendental and have no material effect. One is therefore filled with peace in Krishna consciousness, but one who is entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have that peace. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearfulness. So this is a wonderful verse, and it explains the quintessential truth that pure devotional service solves all the problems of life. But one has to be ready to think of Krishna 24 hours a day and only desire to please the Lord and listen very, very carefully to the instructions of Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. Very, very carefully. And get the hint of what is the right thing to do in all circumstances. So therefore, there's no duality. Duality is caused when we have material desires. And our material desires are going to conflict with our spiritual desires. So therefore, there's a duality in our life, and it's confusing. Should I do this or should I do that? On the one hand, as long as we have what's described here as greedy for the fruits of our labor, we become entangled in this duality and in problems of life. And basically the struggle for existence, because everyone is working for the fruits of their labor. Therefore, there's going to be competition on all levels in the material world, from the homeless people up to the richest people. Right? Homeless people also have problems. You think, well, they don't have to pay any rent, they don't have to pay mortgages. Yeah, they don't have any of those things, but they have problems still, right? And a lot of problems, right? So, therefore, the only realistic way of life is to become completely Krishna conscious. And it says here, in text 13 of the 5th chapter, Sarvakarmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vasi nava dware pure dehi naiva kurvam nakarayan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the service of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Well, this might sound a little bit like Mayavad philosophy, because it sounds as if it sounds like one should give up working. But that's not exactly what it's saying here. So let's read the purport. Prabhupada says, the embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. Yeah. What are those 9 gates? A gate is something that's closed but can be opened to let someone in. So there's 9 gates. There are 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, a mouth, an anus, and a genital. So that's 9. So those are 9 portals for entrance into the body. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of body, are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. So, the modes of nature are controlling this body. The body is not who we are. It's a material, let's say, vehicle. And it's being controlled by the modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Now that's the point. Why would a person desire to be beyond the control of the body and the modes of material nature? Well, only if they are listening to classes in the temple, and listening classes by Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have any idea that it's possible to transcend the control of the body and the influence of the modes of material nature, and to attain eternal life in a spiritual body. They wouldn't have any knowledge of it. They don't teach that in schools. And therefore, all people who refuse to hear from bona fide sources, they unnecessarily are suffering, unnecessarily are in this grand struggle for existence, this competition on all levels, and always being troubled by dualities and the karma and so many problems. Right? It's all unnecessary. So it says here, the soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his deliberations are changed, in other words, his thoughts are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows: Navadware Pure Dehi Hamso Leelayate Bahi Vasi Sarvasya Lokasya Stavarasya Charasya Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 1 anus, 1 genital. The living entity, in his conditioned stage, identifies himself with the body, but when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord even while in the body. Srutasvatara Upanishad 3:18. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. Well, this is very profound philosophy, and most people have an aversion to believe this because the allurement of sense gratification is so powerful that they will do things that are against their own self-interest. They think that sense gratification is their self-interest, but actually it's destroying them. See? Every time a person has sex, it's destroying their energy, and it affects their mind, and it has a negative effect on the body. So, therefore, if you hate yourself, then you will deny, and you have enviousness of God, you will deny yourself any opportunity to be Krishna conscious. But if you have respect for saintly persons, and you have a penchant to hear from them, the desire to free yourself from the dualities and relativities in the material world become more important than just making money and engaging in sense gratification. The basic theme of material life is you make money, hook or crook, and you spend it on sense gratification. But Prabhupada has said very clearly, it's better to be poor, to not have a lot of money, but live very simply and be completely dedicated to Krishna. Well, that's how he lived for a long time, right? From 1958 to 1965, he was very poor. He was eating more than roti and potato. And very little, very, very little money, but yet he was getting his magazine printed somehow or other, and collecting just a little bit of money, and living in Vrindavan. But to distribute his book, he would go to Delhi. So that was a big endeavor for him. He didn't have any disciples. But he was able to translate the first canto, Srimad-Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad Gita, and write the purports. And eventually he had to beg a ticket to come on a merchant boat, a merchant ship from Calcutta all the way to New York. But he did it, and with no money. And he enters the United States with $7, which is nothing. $7, you can spend it in 1 minute in New York City. So we see what a tremendous risk he took. But he took that risk on the basis of full faith in his Guru and Krishna. So this is what's going to determine whether one is going to stay in Krishna consciousness or not. Their faith in Krishna and Guru. That's what's going to maintain them. Because someone can say, well, I have faith in this devotee, that devotee. Yeah, but what if those devotees fall down? Not that we want anybody to fall down, but we don't want anyone to fall down, but sometimes they do. Does that mean your faith is going to be destroyed? No, not if your real faith is in Prabhupada and Krishna. Those are the two rails, parallel rails, or railroad tracks that are leading back to Godhead. So this faith will determine the position of the devotee in spiritual life, and the faith in Guru and Krishna. Yasya Devi Para Bhakti Yata Devi Tata Guru Tasyaite Katitahi Atak Prakasante Mahatmanaha. So this verse says exactly that all the imports of the Vedas are revealed to one who has absolute faith in Guru and Krishna. So the first Guru is Krishna. And for us in ISKCON, the second most important, or the most important Shiksha Guru, besides Krishna, is Srila Prabhupada. If we have complete faith in Prabhupada and Krishna, no matter what happens in this life, we will always remain a devotee. This should be understood because this is really the baseline of determination to be Krishna conscious. So in the 6th chapter, 47th verse, of course, this verse is quoted. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both Lord and spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. So, with this unflinching faith, Krishna gives us knowledge. And it's saying it here. It says, only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports, meaning all the meanings or understanding of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Okay, so then the opposite of this is catastrophic. What do we mean? Well, for example, it says in the 16th chapter, 20th verse, Asurim yonim apana mudha janmani mam aprapyaiva konteya tato yant adamam gatim. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. So, this is talking about what? Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men. Krishna says, I perpetually cast them into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life, because they're bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, and the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. In the purport to 1620, Prabhupada says, "It is known that God is all merciful, but here we find that God is never merciful to the demoniac. It is clearly stated that the demoniac people, life after life, are put into the wombs of similar demons, and not achieving the mercy of the Supreme Lord, they go down and down, so that at last they achieve bodies like those of cats, dogs, and hogs. It is clearly stated that such demons have practically no chance of receiving the mercy of God at any stage of later life. In the Vedas also it is stated that such persons gradually sink to become dogs and hogs. It may be then argued in this connection that God should not be advertised as all-merciful if he is not merciful to such demons. In answer to this question, in the Vedanta Sutra we find that the Supreme Lord has no hatred for anyone. The placing of the asuras, the demons, in the lowest status of life is simply another feature of his mercy. Sometimes the asuras are killed by the Supreme Lord, but this killing is also good for them, for in Vedic literature we find that anyone who is killed by the Supreme Lord becomes liberated. There are instances in history of many asuras, Ravana, Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, to whom the Lord appeared in various incarnations just to kill them. Therefore, God's mercy is shown to the asuras if they are fortunate enough to be killed by him. Okay, so it says here that God is never merciful to the demoniac. Well, we have Hiranyakashipu, we have Ravana, we have also Ravana and others. So, what is our position? Our position as devotees is one of faith. And this is explained also in the fourth chapter, where it says, Ajnash Shastradhanascha Samsayatma Vinassati Nayam Loko Sti Na Paro Na Sukham Samsayatmanaha. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Well, this is a wonderful verse because it shows the hopelessness of faithless people, of the atheists, the humanists, and all these phony so-called enlightened persons. They're not enlightened at all. They're in darkness of ignorance. And Prabhupada says, out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the best. Persons who are almost like animals have no faith in or knowledge of the standard revealed scriptures, and some, even though they have knowledge of or can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. And even though others may have faith in scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, they do not believe in or worship the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. They fall down. Out of all the above mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. Men without faith in God and his revealed word find no good in this world, nor in the next. For them, there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of revealed scriptures with faith, and thereby be raised to the platform of knowledge. Only this knowledge will help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, Doubtful persons have no status whatsoever in spiritual emancipation. One should therefore follow in the footsteps of great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. Wow, this is a very powerful verse and tremendous purport. So, therefore, having faith in Krishna, and the only way to do that is to be in the association who have faith in Krishna on a continual basis. Then you will have faith also. But associating with people who don't have faith, you will eventually lose your faith also, because they'll be saying all kinds of negative things, little by little, chipping away at your faith, and then finally you just give up and become one of them. So this is also explained in the 9th chapter, 12th verse, which says, Mogasya Moga Karmano, Moga Jnana Vichetasam, Raksasim Asurim Chaiva Pakritim Mohitim Shrita. It says, those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Well, this is what happens when you don't have faith in Krishna. Everything will be defeat. And Prabhupada says, there are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile, meaning always a failure. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of knowledge in the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled, always confusing and bewildering. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brihad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, one who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. Whew. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, all this is to convince us of the importance of having the association of genuine devotees who have full faith in Prabhupada and Krishna, so that we can also develop such unwavering faith and attain, let's say, the pinnacle of devotional service, which is always being engaged in devotional service and not having any other preoccupation in life. So then in the 16th chapter, there's another verse that is related to all of this, and it's a very popular one, very famous one. Yashastra vidim utsrija vartate kamakarata nasa siddhim avapyuti nasukam na param gatim. That person who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Well, Bhagavad Gita is, for us, number one scripture, along with Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that means that we should be hearing and reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam every day. Why? Because Bhagavad Gita is Krishna speaking to us directly, and Srimad-Bhagavatam is a collection of pure devotees speaking about Krishna. So therefore, this should be our main focus in life, and to be inspired by these two most transcendental and most pure scriptures. So a person who discards or ignores hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam every day, it's a whimsical act. It's based on forgetfulness or negligence of duty. When you get initiated, you promise to give up 4 negative regulative principles and to always chant Hare Krishna and to engage in devotional service in the association of devotees. So, why? Because we want to always remember Krishna. We want to always understand how to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions and make that the number one priority in our life. So as described before, the Shastra Vidhi, or the direction of the Shastra, is given to the different castes and orders of human society. Everyone is expected to follow these rules and regulations. If one does not follow them and acts whimsically according to his lust, greed, and desire, then he never will be perfect in his life. In other words, a man may theoretically know all these things, but if he does not apply them in his own life, then he is to be known as the lowest of mankind. So that he's referring to what's called Naradama. Naradama, as explained in the 7th chapter, 14th verse. Is it 14th verse? No. 7th chapter. 7th chapter. 16th verse. Let's see what it is. Second. 16th verse. Yes. 15th verse. Yeah. 7th chapter, 15th verse. Naradama. Lowest among mankind. So what is this Naradama? The explanation of it is given in the purport, and it's a long purport to 715. He says, Prabhupada says, another class of Duskriti, or miscreant, is called the Naradama, or the lowest of mankind. Nara means human being, and Adama means lowest. Out of the 8,400,000 different species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species. Out of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradama. Nor is religion without God religion, because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth. The civilized the following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relation with him. Supreme truth is Krishna, of course, and the relationship with him. In the Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for man's reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relation with the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is all-powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as Nara Dhamma. We get information from revealed scriptures that when the baby is in the mother's womb, an extremely uncomfortable situation, he prays to God for deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is a natural instinct in every living being because he is eternally related with God. But after his deliverance, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer also, being influenced by Maya, the illusory energy. It is the duty of the guardians of children to revive the divine consciousness dormant in them. The 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies, as enjoined in the Manu Samhita, that is talking about well, he's talking about, it's called, anyway, I'll think of it in a second. These are the, in Catholicism, it's called the, anyway, I'll come back to it. So the 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies, they're called samskaras. Those are 10 different types of reformatory ceremonies, like before birth, for conception, the Garbhodana samskar, and then after birth, the first grains, and then the cutting of the hair, and then the first alphabet. All these different samskaras are meant, they're passages from one level of life to a next level of life, and to remind the living entity that the whole purpose of life is purification of the material concept of life. These samskaras are performed at different stages of life. The 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies, as enjoined in the Manusmriti, which is the guide to religious principles, are meant for reviving God consciousness in the system of Varnashrama. However, no process is strictly followed now in any part of the world, and therefore 99.9% of the population is Naradama. The whole population becomes Naradama naturally. When the whole population becomes Naradama, naturally all their so-called education is made null and void by the all-powerful energy of physical nature, according to the standard of the Gita. A learned man is he who sees on equal terms the learned Brahmana, the dog, the cow, the elephant, and the dog eater. That is the vision of a true devotee. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the incarnation of Godhead as divine master, delivered the typical Naradama, the brothers Jagai Madai, and showed how the mercy of a real devotee is bestowed upon the lowest of mankind. So the Naradama, who is condemned by the personality of Godhead, can again revive his spiritual consciousness only by the mercy of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in propagating the Bhagavad Dharma, or activities of the devotees, has recommended that people submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is Bhagavad Gita. The lowest amongst human beings can be delivered by this submissive hearing process only. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception to these messages, and what to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord. Naradamas, or the lowest of mankind, will fully neglect the prime duty of the human being. Wow. So, there's another very important verse related to this in the 6th chapter. And it's all about what's called equality, understanding the equality of all living entities. The 6th chapter, 32nd verse, it says, Atmo pam yena sarvatra samam pasyati yo rijana sukam va yadiva dukam sa yogi paramo namata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. This is a very profound verse. And this verse explains the merciful mentality of a devotee who analyzes himself and understands the equality of all living beings. That includes the insects, the bugs, the rats, the goats, the cows, every living entity. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, one who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. But he also experiences happiness and distress, and success and failure, love and hate. Yeah. So he can commiserate. That's a very nice word, commiserate. Have mercy and understand another person's suffering and have mercy for them. And he can be empathetic, that is, put themselves in the position of the other person and feel their pain and suffering. So this commiserate, empathetic, both are very important words. You see the meaning? So, therefore, by comparison to his own self, the perfect yogi or perfect devotee sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. So Prabhupada says, the cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. So that's the quote. Yeah, you have the word?
Yes.
Commiserate?
Commensurate, corresponding in size or degree, in proportion.
Keep going. Second definition. Commiserate.
C-O-M-M-E-N-S-U-R-A-T-E.
What does it mean?
Corresponding in size or degree, in
No,
proportion.
you didn't spell it right. C-O-M-M-I-S. E-R-A-T-E. C-O-M-M-I-S. E-R-A-T-E. Commiserate.
So this is C-O-M-M-I-S-E-R-A-T-E.
Yeah. What's it say?
It says express or feel sympathy
Yeah.
or pity, sympathize.
Yes. Yes. And then emphatic. No, empathetic. E-M-P-A-T-H-E-T-I-C. Empathetic. Or empathy.
Empathy means the ability to understand and share the feelings of another.
There you go. You see? So what does this verse say? It says, he is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. So, Prabhupada continues in the purport. He says, the perfect yogi knows that the living being, who is conditioned by the modes of material nature, is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one is Krishna conscious, is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Because one who is Krishna conscious is happy. Such happy people try and spread Krishna consciousness to everyone. If they're not happy, they can't do it. But if they're happy, they can spread to everyone. And because one is Krishna conscious, and one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world. So philanthropist is one who is generous and charitable, right? He's the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Nachatasma manusyesu kaschid me priyakritama, Bhagavad Gita 1869. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities, and in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. Well, that's the difference between the yogi and the devotee. So, the devotee would make every effort. And if we look in the life of Prabhupada, we see the example of this. He made every effort possible in his latter days to spread Krishna consciousness, translating books with bona fide commentary of Vaishnavism, making devotees, and then sending them out to open temples and to perform Sankirtan and distribute books massively so that the information is out there for those people who are looking to solve the problem of suffering and birth and death, old age and disease. So, because he can understand by comparison to his own self, he sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. And the basic understanding is, why do people suffer? It's because of forgetfulness of Krishna. So, if devotees can help people remember Krishna and understand their eternal relationship with Krishna, their problems of life will go away. And God knows that so many people have problems in this world today. Their health problems, it's all related to the body problems. And then they have problems with other people and other problems with viruses and insects and bugs and so forth, and rats. And then problems with government, problems with war, problems, all kinds of problems. Right? So, therefore, all this can be solved by remembrance of one's relationship with Krishna and by becoming Krishna conscious. Okay, so we covered a lot of points. Coming back to the what we read today. Everybody, whoever they are, etan nivirdimananam ichitam akutobayam yoginam nipanirnitam harir namanakirtanam. It is finally decided that everyone, namely those in the renounced order of life, the mystics, and the enjoyers of fruitive work, should chant the holy name of the Lord fearlessly to achieve the desired success in their pursuits. So if you want to be successful, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And what is success? Success is remembering Krishna always. So, as it says, Smarta avyam satatam Vishnu, Vishmaratavya najatuchit. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. All other rules are subordinate to these two. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Because our problem is forgetfulness of Krishna is the cause of all our suffering. And constant remembrance of Krishna will solve all those problems. Hari Bol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions?
No online question.
Is there anybody listening? Is that on Facebook or is that on?
This is on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube.
YouTube.
How about on Facebook? It's also shown on Facebook, I think.
Facebook and YouTube. Facebook, yeah, two on Facebook, so total 11.
Haribol. Okay. No questions? Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What happened to our Aarti? Did he perform Aarti or no? No.
Not yet.
See how nice these Bhagavad Gita is. There's so many nice verses.
And the connection is like, it's just like a flowing,
Yeah.
flowing into the one subject.
You want to chant?
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma Bandha mohi savadhana mate Jahara prasade bhai e bhavatoriya jai Krishna prapti ho jahan hoite Guru mukha padma vakya chitete koriya kya Arna kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charane rati ऐसे उत्तम गति जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्वा आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जयते वेदे गाय जहाँ रचरितो वेदे गाय जहाँ रचरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनारा बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनारा बंधु जीवाना लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना आहा प्रभु आहा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया एबे जास गुशुक त्रिभुवाना जयो प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना जयो प्रभुपदा जयो प्रभुपदा जयो प्रभुपदा जयो प्रभुपदा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पशता देशतारिणे जयो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava, Amacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, friends, oh Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Dvaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Rangamaya Ki Jai. Chimanamaya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to Samaveda. All glories to Samaveda. All glories to Samaveda. Glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet in great honor. By his grace, one can cross the ocean with material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is that my consciousness is purified by the words emanating from his lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental love. He is my Lord, birthday. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean mercy, from the foreign Lord and master, the devotees. All master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of the lotus feet. Your fame is spread through all the three worlds. We take shelter of the lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki